Good morning. Today is Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. This is the first Arlington County Board of Equalization hearing for the year. We have 5 cases on the agenda, and there are 5 board members present for a quorum. The first case that we're going to hear is RPC 210200005, 5724 2nd Street South. Mr. Davidson, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property, sir.
Certainly, and thank you to the board for your time and consideration. And I tried to be thorough in my written appeal, and you found that compelling last year, so I'll try and keep this to a short summary. But as I indicated in my appeal, you are the Board of Equalization, and this is about equal treatment of my house and its assessment versus others in the neighborhood. As I indicated in my appeal, my house was assessed at $1.68 million. No house in my area has sold for that amount. So on an absolute basis, I feel that it's unequal. Likewise, on a year-over-year average, the county grew at 3.7%, and mine came in at approximately 13%, so triple the county average. So again, I think that is unequal. Diving in a little bit to comparable properties, I listed several in my appeal. You've seen that there. All land is assessed equally, so let's strip that out and let's just talk about the value of the houses. All of the comparable properties that I listed in my appeal are significantly lower than my house in terms of the assessed value. If you just shift not to my comparables, but the ones that the county put together in their denial of my appeal at that level, every single one of the properties that they listed as comparables was materially less in assessment than what my property was in terms of building value. In fact, the average was roughly $140,000 to $150,000 less on average. So for all those reasons combined, I think my house has been assessed or treated unequally versus other comparable properties, and that's the reason for my appeal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Churchill for the county, please.
Yes, good morning, board. An interior and exterior inspection was conducted on March 10th with Jorge Carvajal. The subject's property's neighborhood 508063, Glen Carlin, increased on average 4.3% due to the sales that occurred within the neighborhood and within the analysis period. The subject's property quality of Excellent Plus appears in line with the neighborhood being a 2-story single-family home with 3,089 square feet above ground and 4 full bathrooms. The effective age of 2020, excuse me, also appears in line with being a new construction built in 2020. The 13% increase mentioned by the appellant is actually due to the fact that the BOE did reduce the subject last year. There are 3 comparable sales on the comp sheet, 2 of which the appellant also submitted as comparables. These are within the neighborhood and occurred within the analysis period. Last year, the BOE had concerns that there not being any sales of $1.6 million within the neighborhood. The BOE lowered the value to $1.489 based on sales comps submitted by the appellant and also reduced the subject's sister property. While last year's analysis didn't have any homes selling for 1.6, if you look at page 32, which is this year's analysis for the neighborhood, you can see that we are now seeing both $1.5 and $1.6 million sales. Lowering this property to 1.4 last year took the subject out of equalization when comparing to similar properties within the neighborhood. This year, there are sales to show the subject's value is equalized to similar within the neighborhood. It is recommended that the 2025 assessment be confirmed at $1,682,500, and this amount can be confirmed as fair and equitable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Questions from board members? Mr. Yates.
I'm looking at the to the county. I'm looking at the comps. What impact is the difference between a excellent plus and an excellent minus impact?
So the third comp that we submitted, that's the one I think you're speaking of, that's excellent minus. So the subject compared to that one specifically, the subject has coffered ceilings in the living room wainscoting, tray ceilings in the hallway, in the living room, in the bedroom. There's also the subject and that comp that you're speaking of, both have wet bars, but the subjects is a little bit more upgraded, more built out. There's just some upgrades to the subject in comparison to the one that is excellent minus.
Well, that's the difference between the excellent plus and excellent minus.
Yes.
What financial impact does that have in your assessment?
Like,
I'm looking at those are the two rate. They're pretty close otherwise. The rating's a little different. And I was just wondering how does that financially impact in the assessment?
well, if you'll give me 1 second. I mean, the excellent plus, are you asking for the actual dollar amount that's going to be the difference if we like change that one to excellent plus?
General, yes.
1 second, I'm sorry.
I mean, they're pretty equal. I understand what you just explained as far as what you saw as differences, but I'm just wondering because on the numbers, looking at the comps, that's what I'm seeing just curious.
I'm pulling it up right now. If you'll give me just 1 second.
It's 150,000 for what seems to be equal. That's a lot of plus and minus.
Oh,
Thanks. I just don't see wainscoting that things are 150,000.
so it looks like if we changed that comparable from excellent minus to excellent plus, it would change the value from 1,539,900 to 1,672,100.
Wow. So it is 150,000 impact.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Mr. Davidson, if you take a minute to wrap up then. Can you microphone on?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll stand behind my original comment, although I think the board member's question is interesting. I'll go back to the comparables actually that the department put together. The highest one that they have in comparison is $100,000 difference, and that's new construction, not a 5-year-old house. So for me, this is about equal treatment. What would the comparable value be? What is the appropriate value? And I continue to think that mine is higher than similar houses are in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Churchill, if you take a minute to wrap up.
Yes, thank you. Again, the 13% increase mentioned by the appellant is due to the fact that the BOE reduced it last year, and that the sales show that we are seeing more 1.5 and $1.6 million homes within the neighborhood. So we do recommend that the 2025 assessment be confirmed at 1,682,500. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. All right, it's just among the board. I too saw what Mark was going at, and then the other thing I looked at was, sorry, just clicked on case 2. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. So on comp 2, I mean, that house, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, that's really close to standpoint other than 200 square feet in the basement. Oh, there's another 1,000 square foot.
500 upstairs.
That's 100,000 difference. You know, but there's 1,000 square foot more in the subject property. So,
Well,
taking that.
the other thing I'd say is, in county stated that there are sales going between 1.5 and 1.6 million in that range. This is assessed to 1.68 as opposed to what's selling now. at 1.516. That, to me, we're still running $100,000 gap here somewhere.
Yeah, I always get nervous when county can't find a comparable in the neighborhood that is at the level that they're assessing a home that was built 4 years ago. So,
I couldn't
like,
find
one,
one either.
yeah,
I couldn't find one either. Just like last year, that's the reason I looking to reduce. Originally, when I read the case, I agreed with the owner. I think the increase that requested. I came up with the same number that he did actually.
I just didn't think it could be lower than comp two, because it's 1,000 square foot large. So
Right,
it's not
right.
a lot of money, but
Yeah, but I mean, good question about the condition. That's a big difference. So,
Even 150,000 difference. So the fact that they're saying they're selling between 1.5 and 1.6 range, and this is almost 1.7, even at an upper scale finish, I think that you're not going to see the 1.7 million.
Yeah, I think comp one it tells you a lot. The sales price was, a little bit lower than what this one is assessed for, but again, it does not have nearly as much. It has about 500 less square feet. So with that said, I was okay with the assessment because we are seeing sales in the 1.6 range. Looks like our subject property is superior to these three. So, I understand there's a difference in quality, et cetera, but yeah, I'm okay with the assessment per se.
the way it is.
Yeah, the way it is.
I like your balance number. Just that.
So when I read the case and I looked at all, because I go by some of the new homes that are set up for 1.8.
544.
where you
Or I think that's taking it a little too low. I'm more along the lines $100,000. With comparing to the comps, the quality and the size differences on two, and
Yeah, I've gone the other way, because originally I thought it's comp two, it couldn't be lower than that, but it's 1,000 square foot bigger than comp two. So I'm going with Johnny. I'm gonna say,
And we have sales in the 1.6 range again. There's a little bit less square footage on the two comps that were in the 1.6 range, but all things considered, I'm okay with it. Like I said.
I don't think.
I mean, I'm okay with any reduction. It's down.
I agree with it not being, well, comp two's excellent, plus also,
yeah, that's,
but the square footage difference is,
so you're from,
Yeah, I understand. The original read the case out of everything in the residential policy. But yeah, that's what it makes the difference. It's tough. It's gonna be tough. Yeah.
and the percentage increase is just because we lowered it last year. It's not.
Right,
it went up
right.
4%.
I
So
also,
you're okay with leaving it?
Yeah.
You okay?
I honestly,
Yes or no?
when people go through the house, you guys, it's every day. I don't think, yes, that's great molding, it's at 150,000.
Right, but we're not talking about molding now. We're talking about the
Yeah.
options.
Also, that comp sold in 2022 for almost 1.6. So, the others sold in 2024, but that one was only 2022. So it may be higher if it's sold today.
That's a good point. All right. I'll go with it.
Sure. I'm going to move that we confirm the county's assessment of $1,682,500.
Should I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, it's 5-1. Now, Mr. Hoffman, 4-1, I'm sorry. The county's confirmed at $1,682,500. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Do we have Mr. King? And John Humer? Can you turn your cameras on?
This is Hugum Chan.
There's no comp to it at a public building.
Mr. Chan, okay, do you have a
Yeah.
camera, sir?
I'm sorry, my camera is on.
It's listing.
We're not seeing you, but that's okay. And Mr. King,
Yeah, I'm here.
is your camera on, Mr. King?
Yes.
I wonder how they value that, the county values that.
So they shouldn't say anything.
Okay, I don't see it, Mr. King.
Do they know about it? I wonder.
Slightly.
It didn't subdivide. Yeah.
All right, we're going to proceed on. Second case is
Check out 5
RPC
minutes early.
11006-109 at 2320 North Underwood Street. Mr. Chan, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about your property.
Sure, thank you very much for your time and consideration this morning. I won't be using all of my 8 minutes. I've tried to be as thorough as I can in my appeal. But here, what I believe is that the assessment is one of convenience rather than one of equity. Specifically, my property is basically bookend by properties in the townhome community that are adjacent to Langston Boulevard and property that are adjacent to Charles Stewart Park. And what the board has done is, attributed one value to the bookend properties and then made everything in the middle pretty much all the same, which I think is a matter of convenience and less so of equity. My property, as I explained, is closer to Langston Boulevard, for which, the county acknowledges there's been a study that's done that results in a 10% decrease to the property. Yet somehow the value of my property is being assessed in the same manner as properties that are further away from Langston Boulevard and closer to Charles Stewart Park. And I will yield the rest of my time to the board.
Okay, thank you. Mr. King for the county, please.
Good morning, board. This is a higher end N-unit townhome built in 2020. The department did perform both an interior and an exterior inspection on the property. No changes made to the property record. Sycamore Square is a town and community of 27 townhomes, mostly the same in overall design. There are some slight variations in assessment values, with the properties that front along Langston Boulevard, like Mr. Chan said, receiving the department standard of negative 10% adjustment on the land and improvement for the obsolescence created by this location. This is something that we apply to not just these townhomes, but also homes up and down Langston Boulevard. There's also the middle strip of townhomes where the subject property is that received no adjustments. And then in the rear of the neighborhood, there are units that have backyards that abut a county-owned park. These properties receive a positive 10% adjustment on their land just to account for these yards and their access there. After the initial sales of these townhomes after completion, there have been only 2 sales in the neighborhood, both of the same unit, 6719 24th Court North, which is comparable 4. It sold in December of 2024 for $1,599,999. It had previously sold back in 2022 for $1,526. Its 2025 assessment is $1,502,200. There are a few other townhome sale comparables in the comp sheet in kind of the East Falls Church area, but this one in Sycamore Square is probably the best indicator of values for this community. The appellant does note that 6713 24th Court North had a lower assessment than 2024. However, this is due to the depreciation percentage increasing on this unit compared to the subject. This property was built in 2021, so its depreciation percentage changes will always take effect a year after the subject property, which was built in 2020. Overall, Sycamore Square only saw a small $10,000 increase in land between the 2024 and 2025 assessments, with no changes to the LMs applied to the improvements. The most recent sale in the town and community is at 1.6 million compared to the subject's valuation of 1,446,000. And without further sales demonstrating a need to adjust that middle band of townhomes that don't have a positive or negative adjustment, the department recommends a confirmation of the 2025 assessment at $1,446,600. Thank you.
Questions from board members? Mr. Mendez.
Yeah, this is for the county. The appellant mentioned a reduction for being on Langston Boulevard. Did I hear that correctly? Was that applied last year? Starting
Yes,
last year?
I mean, it's not to the subject property, but it is to the townhomes in the community that are along Langston Boulevard. Yes, they do have a reduction, and I think that started to be applied in 2023.
Got it. So it's the whole community as a whole, all the units
All the units that front Langston Boulevard, yes.
That are on.
Get our own lines.
that are on Langston, not in the
Rest of
townhomes.
Not the whole.
Okay,
Not all of them.
got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. King, if you take a minute to wrap up then.
Sure. The department is always looking for more data to adjust assessments. This is a fairly new town and community with few sales. The single recent sale that we do have is quite strong. Previous sales did show a strong indicator for the positive adjustment against the park. And then we do apply the negative adjustment for Langston Boulevard as per the department standard. So the department stands by the valuation of 2025 for $1,446,600. Thank you.
Mr. Chan, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Sure. The only thing that I want to say is that the property that was sold recently, that's been posited as being the most comparable, as Mr. King noted, is not similarly situated. It is a property that's adjacent to the park and has a backyard, which materially affects the value of the home. And that's all.
Okay, thank you both. All right, it's just among the board. You know, I just will say that last comment. I mean, it's also assessed higher, the land,
Right.
490 to 539 to be against the park. So,
The subject has another full bath as well.
sorry.
The subject has another full bath as well. Compared to the comp.
Bruce, everybody.
I'm okay with it. It's just-
Would somebody like to make a motion?
Says 1,446,600.
Second.
Okay. Motion. Second by Mr. Mendez, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. It's unanimous. The county is confirmed at 1,446,600. Thank you both. We're keeping Mr. King. Mr. McCarthy, I saw you on there. Can you turn your camera on, sir?
Morning, board.
Good morning. Next case on the agenda is RPC 03012006, 3801 North Dumbarton Street. Mr. McCarthy, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property, sir.
Sure. I think where I'd like to start here is, you know, we could not sell our house for its current assessed value, and we understand that it's in a very unique situation because of the larger lot size in Arlington County. And the reason it's remained an older house in a larger lot in Arlington County is because the lot is not subdividable, and that the county restricts improvements that can be done on this property due to its proximity to the floodplain and proximity to the RPA. Mr. King has cited several comps in his analysis that, you know, do have some presence of a floodplain or RPA. I would say that none, you know, rise to the severity of our property. And I just want to draw attention to this exhibit here that is kind of buried in the back of the packet that at least I received that I had submitted to the county. But essentially, this is our house, and this these are the floodplain lines that go through the back of our house. And because our house touches the 15-foot buffer and not this floodplain line here, we may not do a substantial improvement on our property. And what that means is we cannot do a repair that costs more than $285,000, which does not go very far in Arlington County, meaning that if we experienced a complete casualty event, we'd have to move outside of the RPA, which extends all the way to here on our property, move outside of this 15-foot buffer, adhere to various setbacks, and be left with this buildable area. So if we sustain any kind of casualty event in excess of $285,000 of damage on our house, we would have to not be able to repair it and have to tear it down and move it. As such, you know, we've looked to renovate our house, have ran into some issues there, and at one point went to try to sell our house, and kind of the feedback that we got was that, you know, we likely could not get more than 2.2 million for this house, that it would be someone who would come in, do a lighter renovation and enjoy the property. So, you know, our assessment has continued to escalate over the years as this floodplain has continued to creep closer to our property, with you know, more water being shoved down Pimmet Run due to development upstream. That has, you know, further restricted our ability to make improvements on our property. So we've focused our appeal on the land value, given in my reading of the county's methodology of the assessment on the building is a little more rigid, versus there seems to be a lot more flexibility in the land. As you know, I've pointed out a comp that just sold at 2623 Military Road that, although traded as 4 separate parcels, was, you know, marketed as one property and sold for 2.7 million. You know, with a land assessment of $24 per square foot versus our $34.50 per square foot. And that property, you know, the out parcels that it's sold with are almost entirely encumbered by floodplain and RPA, and therefore all sell together. And to me is the more accurate depiction of how the market and, you know, an equal assessment of our land would be treated.
Okay, thank you. Mr. King for the county, please.
Good morning again, board. We didn't do any inspection on the main house or the accessory dwelling on this record, so I won't touch on that. The appellant and the department is pretty much fine with the assessment on that portion of the property. This is a small neighborhood of mostly larger lots. The crux of this case really is the size of the appellant's property, being 58,109.04 square feet. Larger lots like this, even something like over 20,000 square feet, are pretty rare in the county. Being almost 60,000 square feet, we do not see parcels like this sell very often. This neighborhood, being mostly larger lots, is valued on a per square foot basis. Below an acre in size, the properties are valued at $39 a square feet, and then above an acre, we do drop that down to $34.50 a square foot. As far as comps, I think the homeowners in the department, we're all going to kind of circle around the same few comps. We do see it as a range of values to try and pin down what we think the valuation per square foot would be. We do still have to value that land beyond the 15,000 or 20,000 square foot that some of the other larger lot sales we see are. There is a range of dollar per square foot sales prices and assessment valuations for the comps that both the department and the appellant cite in the case. However, we feel that the subject property's dollar per square foot isn't out of line based on those sales. It is going to be a range between all of those. There is a further argument about the property's location in the floodplain and the resource protection area. We do monitor and study the effect of these locational restrictions, same as we do for busy roads. We look at the effect on sales prices and the assessment to sales price ratios. While it does seem counterintuitive at times, we don't see any substantial effect on the sale prices of properties within these areas. Again, 58,109 square feet is a very large and rare parcel within Arlington County. And the department believes that the $34.50 per square foot reflects a market value, especially taking into account the dollar per square foot rate prices of other smaller lots. So we do ask that the board confirm the 2025 assessment of $2,575,100. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. All right, questions from board members? I'll ask Mr. King. I have a question Helen brought up the sale on Military Road, which is 49,000 square feet.
Sure.
And it's assessed at $24 price per square foot. Can you speak to that, the difference there?
Yeah, so this parcel is, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parcels. Some of them are landlocked. Some of them are what we term an outlot. So these parcels are cut off. The house is not on them. No structures are on them. So this homeowner could sell them to a neighboring property. You know, we do try and value those outlots based on the market. There aren't many outlot sales that we see, kind of raw land, trading between adjacent neighbors. The fact that those are carved up and saleable, and then them also being landlocked, it does affect the marketability compared to one total 60,000 square foot parcel. That's the issue there. They do have different valuations. But again, that would just be a range. And, we do take into effect, we do look at that $24, but we also have stuff that's getting into $40 or $50 or $60 also. So, we try and find the range of valuation within there.
Other questions? Mr. Mendez?
For the appellant, you mentioned trying to sell the property. Was it marketed on the MLS? I couldn't find it. Or could you speak a little bit more?
We never went to sell. We actually tried, or we were looking at buying 26, 23 military, which was how we found it. And it was being marketed, I think, at 2.4 million. And the agent we talked to trying to, purchase that house and sell ours. And when they went through our house and, we found out that house was going to go above ask, we were told there was actually quite a large gap between the value of our house and that house, and that it wouldn't, we'd have to come out of pocket significantly to bridge it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. King, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Sure. At the end of the day, 58,000 square feet is a large parcel within the county. When we start seeing, 10,000 square foot lots that sell for 1.4, 1.5 million, it does become a crunch for us to figure out how to value, these extremely large parcels that will reflect a market value. But we do feel that looking at similar larger sales and consolidation of larger lots, that the $34.50 per square foot rate does reflect a market value for something this large and rare within the county. So we again ask that the board confirm the 25 assessment of $2,575,100. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Sure. Mr. King mentioned, an equal application of a per square foot value based on lot sizes over and above 1 acre in our neighborhood. I'd just like to go back to our lot is more severely encumbered than any other lot in our neighborhood by the floodplain and RPA restrictions, and no other lot suffers from the same hardships as ours. And I understand the out parcel dynamic at 26, 23 military, but I think it goes to show how incremental land could be valued over and above a typical lot size in the county, and what value should be assigned to that. And further, the other comparables mentioned further in the rebuttal and in the packet list projects in Country Club Hills and on the Potomac River, which I view as not comparable to our location.
Okay. All right. Thank you both. It's just among the board members. Where are folks?
Start. It does seem like the county is using a different per square foot number on this property, and I wonder how that factors in. How do they quantify that? Because I guess it's because of the buildability, right? Because it's not buildable. So I wonder how much, if we did go down, why is the other one 24 and this one's 34? How do we quantify that? Is what I'm stuck on. I think 24 is too low. I mean, it drops it way down. So I'm not pushing for 24, but 34 does seem,
24 is closer.
Yeah.
What's the price per square foot on June 3rd? $90.
Two looks what, 41, 48? Let's do the math.
Yeah.
They're all over the board. Very good.
I mean, I wasn't too persuaded to make any changes with this one because I think most of the argument that the owner had was on what could be done with it. And not necessarily what's there. That's what the county does. They when go out and see here, not necessarily thinking what's going to be put in the future.
Well, doesn't the county acknowledge that somewhat by lowering the square foot number? Like, aren't they
Price
acknowledging?
per square foot.
Yeah, price per square foot as far as the land goes. I mean, they're assessing it lower, so they're factoring something in with that, you know. And I would assume that,
It's not buildable, there's no other than view and nice lawn.
right,
Right, but on the flip side of that, they're very limited numbers of parcels that are this size. And
Right.
while they can't be built on, you know, or subdivided,
still has
there is a
value.
market out
Sure.
there for people who just want large parcel.
Privacy.
around, you know,
Riverfront property.
um, you know, so. Where are you?
I'm okay with it. I'm concerned, but I'm okay with it.
Would probably be much higher, but, right?
No,
I'm okay with Mr. King. And I think if you look at the neighbors too, it's like they all kind of have a similar situation, other than the limits of the RPA change for everybody, but
Right.
nice outdoor space, older homes, renovated, some of them, but some of them are also $300,000 higher
Right.
in assessment. So I'm okay with where it kind of falls in equalization.
Right, somebody want to make a motion?
Go ahead and move so that we confirm the assessment. $2,575,100.
Motion. Second,
I'll say.
Mr. Hoffman. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. The county's confirmed at $2,575,100. Thank you, board. The fourth case on the agenda, we're going to skip to last. The appellant is not here. We have Mr. Andrews. There we go. Okay. Next case up is RPC 05060021 at 2322 North Fillmore. Mr. Andrews, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property, sir.
Yeah, hey, thanks so much. I appreciate that you've, I trust that you've read my detailed submission, and I don't want to rehash it sort of up front at least. But what I do want to do is take the opportunity to flag, I guess, a couple items from the county's report that I hadn't seen, obviously, when I made my submission, that I think kind of underscore the inaccuracy of the assessment for my property. I guess first, the county is sort of, in my view, trying to have it both ways when it comes to what it views as a comp for my home. The county admits, and this is from page 3 of the appraiser comments, that the appellant's neighborhood increased on average 4.5% due to sales that occurred within the analysis period, but the subject property saw an 8% increase in line with similar size and quality homes built in the same period. I guess I first take issue with the notion of looking at different percentages, because a percentage in theory should encapsulate all information about a property. But even setting aside the percentage issue, the comps that the county set forth, what the county views as a comp, are not similar in size, were built around the same time. And the assessment for the one house that is increased a percentage point less than the increase for my house. 2900 23rd Street is an example. This home was built in 1988, 30 years before my house, and has more than 1,000 square feet finished less than my house. The county assessed it nearly $600,000 or $577,500 to be exact, less than my house. And this is what the county is setting forth as a comp. A house that's 30 years older and that it assessed $600,000 less than my house. And I guess if this is what the county views as a comp for my home, then the increase for me shouldn't be 8%. It should be much closer to that 4.5% number. A house that gets the county a little closer is the county's comp at 2136 North Pollard. This home was built in 2017 and has more than 500 finished square feet more than my house, yet its year-over-year percentage increase was nearly an entire percentage point lower, 7.1 for North Pollard versus 8% for my house. And so I guess no matter how we slice it, either the county is looking to say a comp for my house is a house that's 30 years older, in which we should be much closer to the 4.5%, or even one that is 1 year older, 2017 versus 2018, there's still an entire percentage point less than the increase for my house. I also want to note that I noticed in what the county submitted is that for 2 of the 3 comps that I submitted, the county apparently has changed its assessment from what is publicly available versus what the county has now told the board. For one of the properties, and this is 2359 North Lincoln, the county lowered its assessment by $66,000. And for another, 3205 23rd Street, the county raised its assessment by $67,000. For the property on Lincoln, the change gets the county's assessment closer to the sale price from last September, although the assessment is still $150,000 over the sale price. And for 23rd Street, the change gets the county's assessment closer to my assessment. And I guess kind of in each of the cases, the county is moving the goalpost to try and make its assessment of my home look more reasonable and to fit the county's narrative to justify my home value. Not only is that not equitable from a process standpoint, but it doesn't change the fact that the county has overvalued my home. And I guess I'll rest there and let the county do its thing and sort of can discuss specifics or answer any questions that the board has. But I did want to raise those 2 points that were sort of new to me from what the county had submitted to the board after I made my submission.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Shelton for the county, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair and distinguished members of the board. As I'm sure you've read and heard in the appellant's write-up, as well as the county's write-up, the appellant believes their home is being overassessed for 2025 and has provided 3 comps for support. 2 of these comps are assessment comps. One of the comps is a sales comp from outside the analysis period. The 2 assessment comps have differences in value from the subject that can be explained in differences in lot size, finished square foot above grade, story height, 1 3/4 story versus 2 story, and features such as a basement garage the subject property has that the comps do not have. These sales comps submitted by the appellant, the sales comp submitted by the appellant sold outside the analysis period, looks to have lost market interest and trust due to the extremely high initial listing and first reduction, both of which were $608,000 and $433,000 over the current year assessment at the time of listing. For the appellant's 2 assessment comps, these homes were built in 2022, which does make them 4 years newer than the subject property. With a difference of 4 years in age, these comped properties and the subject property are still in the same depreciation tier for the assessment year of 2025. They both are currently receiving 2% depreciation. These comps both entered the depreciation tier this year and were receiving 0% depreciation in 2024. The subject property looks to be at the end of this depreciation tier this year and should be receiving 4% in 2026 based on its age. The depreciation tiers are applied the same way across the appellant's neighborhood and the county. For the assessment comp at 3205 23rd Street North, the appellant claims this home has a second full kitchen. This comp was researched based on these claims per the plans for the build. The basement only shows a wet bar and 4 GFCI outlets. This home did not sell in the open market once completed, so there was no way to verify this claim through MRS. However, in Zillow, there are rental listing images that show a downstairs wet bar with a sink, fridge, dishwasher, and microwave. There is no oven or range. This still meets the criteria for a basement wet bar, not a second full kitchen. There's no cooktop or range or oven, which disqualified from being a second full kitchen. While this is a nicer, more functional wet bar, the county captures the fact that it's more than an average wet bar in the level of finish for the basement, which is currently at the highest level of finish. During the research of the plans for the second kitchen and to what the appellant had spoke about with the change in value for this parcel, it was discovered that the comp did not have the correct story height or square footage on the upper level per the department SOPs. The sketch and record were updated, and the assessment value was then updated from $1,792,300 to $1,857,400. This is something the county does on a regular basis. When comps are presented, we research them, and if they are found to be incorrect, we increase or decrease or mainly change to correct the record to be correct going forward. After the record was updated, this comp is still 623 square feet smaller above grade. The biggest differences that explain the difference in assessment value are lot size, above grade square footage, story height, and again, features the subject property has, the comp does not, like a basement garage. In this case, the subject has 10,000 square feet lot. The comp has a 7,200 square foot lot. The net difference is approximately 520 square feet in net square footage between the comp and the subject being larger. For the comp at 2326 North Jackson Street, the appellant claims the comp has more square footage compared to their home and that this comp has 5 full baths compared to their 4.5. Plans were researched, as was the MRS listing, which both have 4.5 baths inside the property, not 5. The record also show that the subject has 430 more square feet above grade. The rest of the records also indicate the comp does have 152 square feet more rec room finish in the basement. With those totals combined, the subject still has a larger net total square footage than the comp. The biggest difference, again, with this comp is the last one that explain the differences in value are lot size, above grade square footage, story height, and features such as the basement garage. The third comp, 2359 North Lincoln Street, is a sales comp that occurred after the close of the analysis period. This home was originally listed for $608,000 over its current year's assessment at the time of listing. The property did see multiple price reductions over a 64-day on market period. The appellant notes that there was a price reduction a week after listing. The first price reduction went from $2.325 million to $2.149 million. A listing price still $433,000 over its current year assessment. It sat at that price for almost 3 weeks before being reduced again from $2,149 to $1,999, which is still almost $300K over the current year's assessment at the time of listing. The home sat at that price for the better part of 5 weeks, and an offer of $1.7 million was accepted. Some key points about this home to note is this home is 13 years older than the subject property. This home is not in the historic district of Maywood. This home sits adjacent to a busy road such as Lorca. The comp, like the others, was researched. During the research of this parcel, and this is touching on what the appellant had spoken to before, it was discovered that a basement walkout feature was incorrectly listed on the sketch. This walkout feature was removed, and the updated value changed from $1.917,300 to $1.851,200. This was not the county attempting to move the goalpost, but merely to correct the records on file. While the comp sold outside the analysis period, had it been included in the analysis, it would appear to be an outlier in assessment to sales ratio compared to the assessment to sales ratios seen inside the analysis. Hypothetically, if we added it to the 2025 analysis, the median ratio for the neighborhood only changes from 98.2 to 98.5. While the comp sales price did not influence this year's assessment for the neighborhood, based on the date of sale, it will be included and influence this year's sales analysis study. The first 2 assessment comps do not indicate an issue of equalization, as the delta or the difference in value is explainable by different features, square footage, and story height. And the third sales comp was outside the analysis period and appears to be a stagnant listing that became an outlier in sales price when compared to the rest of the analysis. Based on the information and the research done for this case, the county recommends that the assessment be confirmed for this year at $1,981,600. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you both. Questions from the board? No? Okay, any final comments, Mr. Shelton?
Based on the research of the appellant's comps, the presentation of the county's comps, and the sales analysis performed in the neighborhood, the county recommends the board confirm the 2025 assessment at $1,981,600.
Thank you. And Mr. Andrews, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Yeah, I would just note that the county kind of beats the drum of larger lot a lot, both in its submission and before you today. And if you read my submission, I have not challenged lot size. I have specifically not done that either in my appeal to the assessor's office in March or in my appeal to the board now. I appreciate that I have a larger lot and I have left that untouched. So I do want to make that clear. I would also note if you look at my submission, sort of what we, talk about with above grade, below grade. I'm trying to share my screen here. I'm not sure if it's going to let me. I guess it's not. If you look at my submission, like it's almost a penalty for the direction my lot slopes. If you look at the house on 23rd Street, 3205, the back has 4 floor-to-ceiling sliding glass doors and 7 windows, yet it is technically below grade. If you look at the photos I've submitted of my house, aside from a 1-stall garage, my only window is 8 feet below a wrought iron escape hatch. So in terms of usability and living space in the basement, other houses that have a different sloping lot sort of get the benefit of a full level. I assure you, I would love to send my 3-year-old down to a basement that had windows so she would stay down there during the day when I work at home. And I wouldn't hear her on a different level. I guess the other thing, just sort of in wrapping up here, is,
Okay, you're wrapped up. You're over your 1
if I
minute.
could
Thank
please
you.
make one more point, because I don't think I've used my full 8 minutes. Maybe I have, but one more point, please. I've submitted to the county what I know to be the only 2 tear down new builds in Maywood beyond my house. And that is significant. The county does not account for the historic designation of these houses, and it should. As Exhibit B to my submission shows, that is significant when selling a lot. And that goes unaccounted for in what the county has assessed.
All right, thank you. Okay, it's just among the board. On this.
I mean, it's tough, and I see the point that you're looking at all your neighbors and they're all assessed $400,000 below you. And then, older houses, granted, but then like the new one gets built a couple years ago. It looks right into your backyard. It's brand new. It's got 3 stories of glass on it. It's still, $100,000 or $200,000 below you. So I could see the appeal from a equalization standpoint, but I don't really have as much of an understanding. I know those houses in those like Maywood are in very high demand, but in supply. So I kind of defer to you guys if you think, 1.92 million is out of the market there, because I know that there's a pretty strong market there when something comes up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at comp 1, I think is strong. The assessment comp 3 is strong to support the value. I have a tough time thinking that it's any less.
Yeah, kind of like thinking that the one that's got the below grade space, which is really not below grade, is probably under assessed, and that's the issue as far as equalization goes. Especially when you look at the pictures in the appellant's package, it's like it's a nice build. So, I mean, I guess with all that, I'd probably go with what the county has right now.
What's that for you?
Oh, yeah, I'm okay with the premise. I think the value's there. It's just, we have differences of how we're going to approach looking at each individual house, but I think I think it's right there.
Yeah, and his point, the house versus land. I don't think I understand what he's looking at as comps, but I don't think he's proved that it's county's wrong in what they're coming up with.
I agree. I think comp 1 is strong.
Right. Somebody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to confirm the county's assessment, $1,981,600.
Second.
Mr. Gates, second, all in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The county is confirmed at $1,981,600. Oh. Okay, so do we have Ms. Cognier? And Ms. Wright is not here. We will hear and she's asked us to hear the case anyway. So RPC 07006-200 at 4723 17th Street North. In absence of the appellant, she did send out additional information yesterday that the board members have. So Ms. Cunha, if you want to now speak on behalf of the county, you have your 8 minutes starting.
Good morning, board. So an interior and exterior inspection of the subject property was done with Nicole Churchill as a second appraiser. The change in total assessment observed by the subject is typical for the neighborhood 50-50-39 and is in line with the location multiplier change of 98 to 118 that was seen in the analysis. This location multiplier is a desirability factor that is applied to homes based off of sales data for that particular neighborhood. And different house types will have different location multipliers, with most neighborhoods having a default location multiplier for 2-story homes and a different one for 1-story homes. The 20% increase to the improvement is consistent with changes made in the analysis, and the changes were based off of sales, but also to equalize with adjacent neighborhoods. Sales demonstrate that the increase was justified, and the improvement values are now equalized with the adjacent neighborhoods. The department did use 3 sales comps, and these can be found on pages 2 and 3 of the BOE packet. And these are homes that are in the same geographic area as a subject. These sales can prove that the assessment for the subject is in line with the market values in the area. 2 of the sales were, however, from Washington Boulevard, and both received a negative 5% adjustment for being on a busy street. Although these homes are slightly smaller in size compared to the subject, the qualities of these homes can demonstrate what homes like the subject are going for. So the appellant also provided their opinion of value was based off of an average of the 6 sales that they used, which have been addressed in the write-up. With data from these sales and the neighborhood analysis, it is recommended that the 2025 assessment be revised to $1,340,700. We did make a few changes after the inspection, so that's why there was a revision in the assessment. This amount can be confirmed as fair and equitable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? No? Okay, any final comments, Ms. Cunha?
So looking at the comps provided by the appellant and those that we used at by the department, we believe that the assessment is fair where it's at. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so someone on the board. Who else looks on this?
I agree with the appraiser. I think that the value is pretty fair for that neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm not moved by the appellant's arguments.
All right. So we want to make a motion?
We confirm the assessment of $1,340,700.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman is a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous. It too is confirmed at $1,340,700. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that completes the agenda. Anybody have any other business? I have one quick thing. Does anybody want a hard copy of the Wilkes Artist?
Yeah.
Look, this is your one and only chance to do it.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it'll be shredded.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you want.
Last one? I hate to shred it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, then you'll shred it yourself afterwards, because you have it electronically.
Yeah.
Okay, Derek, do you have anything that you need to?
I do not. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. I'm good.
Okay, all right, then we will stand adjourned here at 9:59 a.m. Reconvene next Tuesday, May 20th at 9 a.m. and it's a virtual meeting for everyone. Thank you.